Hi. So in the last video, we created a Google form together and just got a title on it. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and add a question or two so that you can experience what the question types are and just go over those basic question types. So in Google Forms, you have the option on the right to add questions with that toolbar. And then when you're in a question, you can choose which one you want to use right here, and the question will adjust as you create that. You can do lots of things like multiple choice, checkboxes, short answer, drop downs, multiple choice grids, all of those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and take a look. In the previous lesson, we created my practice form, and I have mine open up on the top tab right up here. Again, you're looking for the circle around my mouse when you're looking for where I'm clicking. When you do this, you have the options right over here on the right. So you can see we have add a question. We can import questions from other forms if you already have a form already created and you want to just grab questions from it. You can add titles and descriptions to create new sections and headers for your different areas. You can add an image if you want to, a video, as well as sections, and we'll go over that in a minute. But let's just start with the question. Google always starts you out with an untitled question. And you can see that mine has a little red star right here. And that's because by default, my settings are set so that every question is a required question that users must answer. And we'll get into how to adjust that soon. When you click on here, you then get the options to edit the question. You can see on the right that we can choose the different types of questions depending on what you're wanting to do. So do you want them to be open-ended with a short answer or a long answer? Do you want them to be able to choose one option or multiple options with checkboxes? Do you want them to be able to choose a drop-down from a large list of items? You can also have a linear scale where they're rating themselves in like a 1 to 5, 1 to 10. You can have a multiple choice grid or a checkbox grid so that they can pick one thing or multiple things per row and column. And then you can have them put in the date and time. Just a key factor, the date and time are always collected with every single response when they're submitted. So that comes in on the spreadsheet when you create the spreadsheet. So keeping it at multiple choice here, you then get to title your question like, how are you doing today? Then you can have options. Depending on what you do, these options can be adjusted. You can add pictures to the options if you'd like them to pick them. And you can say like happy. You can hit enter to just pop down to the add option, or you can click in it. Good to go, sad, nervous, excited, whatever you want to do, and you can add those in. You can add an other option so people can put in a response of their own, and you just click add other. If there's any that you want to remove at a certain time, like I want to remove good to go, I can click the X off to the right of good to go. I can also move things around by using this 6-dot figure on the left. So when I hover over it, you can see my cursor is a movable option, and I can then click and drag to move those around. So I can move like excited up next above happy, and that's how I can adjust those. Then down at the bottom, you've got some more options. You can duplicate this question. So if I duplicate it, which I suggest that you do, you'll see that a complete duplication of it pops down. I can also delete a question. So we created this duplication and now we can delete it. Then I have required right here. You can see mine is already turned on. You can turn them off or turn them on, whatever you choose to do. If it's required, users will not be able to submit or move forward in the form until this is completed. Then you have a triple dot right here where you can add a description. If you want to add more information for this question, you can go to sections with branching, which is an advanced feature, or you can shuffle the options so that they shuffle them for each person who gets them as far as these options right here. And that's your basic multiple choice question. Let's say we want to add another one. So we can add another question right here, and you'll see that it pops down below. This time I'm going to go ahead and do a short answer, and I'm going to ask, what is your first and last name? I'm going to make sure that this is a required question, and this is a very important question because Google Forms does not collect names inside of our domain. They collect email addresses. So unless you know all of your students' ID numbers by heart, which I don't, I would suggest your first question is always what is your first and last name. This is great for parents and students as well, and you just want to make sure that you have that data and it's aligned with their answers. And since this is down below, I'm going to go ahead and take this question and I'm going to move it up using the move icon at the top of the question and click and drag it up above the other question and then drop it there. That makes this the first question that my users see. And then it will move on to the next one. So this is how you can create basic questions inside of your Google form. You have different question types, like a short answer, which is very small and can't be expanded. It's one line with 36 characters. You have then the paragraph version of that, where you can allow for a large response and have multiple lines up to 72 characters each. You have multiple choice, where they get to select one option, or checkboxes where they can select multiple. And yeah, you can add images to every single one of these. You've got things like a multiple choice grid or a checkbox grid. And these are great if you want to have the same scale or the same options for a lot of different questions. So this is an example for me to do, like, how do you feel about your tasks to create and manage documents in Word? And I have like no knowledge all the way to I can complete the task and teach it to somebody else. And then I have a bunch of different tasks that they can pick from, and they can choose one in each row. And you can see that because it's a multiple choice. If it was a checkbox, they could choose multiple. And this is just a great option for you to be able to evaluate a lot of things at the same time. This is also great for you to make a rubric if you don't want your rubric inside of Google Classroom, which they're built in now. So this was also a great option before that was an option for it. The last thing that we have as far as creating different areas inside of Google Forms is sections. And I want to go over this real quick so that you can have the option to break up your form into multiple pages. Right now, the person filling out the form is on one page, but if you add a section, it'll have a next button in the bottom right so they can continue forward to the next section of that form. You can move sections, complete sections with all of the questions inside of it. You can duplicate sections if you have the same thing over and over again. You can delete them or merge them together. They're really a great feature. You can also use branching options once you have sections available. So like, let's say you want to have two different areas that people go to based off of what they're comfortable with technology or not. So maybe your question is, I want to know whether or not you're comfortable with technology. They can answer yes or no. And if they answer yes, you have questions about like, what are they using? What are they doing? And no, you have questions about like, how can you support them? What kind of training do they need? And so it bases it off of what they answer to give them the questions that they need so that they're not answering questions that they aren't relevant to them. So inside of your Google form, wherever you're clicked, it's going to create a section. So like, let's say I want the first page to be what is your first and last name, and then I want it to say next. So I want that to be the first question. They've got to answer it, no questions asked, and they're not looking at the rest of the questions. So when I'm clicked here, I can then choose add section at the bottom of my toolbar on the right. When I do that, you can see now it says section 2 of 2 and section 1 of 2 at the top of my form. I can remove the title altogether and have nothing so that it's just the next page. And then you have these options. So now you've pushed these to a second page and then they can submit it. And we'll look at how you can view your form and send it and all those kinds of things in a separate video.